if I thought about it, I would have grabbed one of the horror masks because every year my wife collects
Yeah.
Halloween costumes, and then we have nowhere to go. And she's like the biggest Halloween freak. I need to stop
Wow.
because I always do this, and we never get to introduce the podcast. So,
Welcome back to the Always Right podcast. I'm author Karisa DeLay.
and I'm the guy who talks too much before the podcast really starts. And they're
Yes.
like, "What do you talk about? You're really quiet, and you let Karisa tell everything." It's because I'm chill. I just like to interject the goofy stuff. So, but we do have a really cool one today because Halloween is coming.
Halloween. And so we decided to do scary stories to tell on the podcast. We're going to talk about scary stories in general, and then we're going to talk about some of our favorites, and we're going to talk about a few other ones. And I brought along a little
Oh,
spooky
that is so weird you did
Ohio.
that. But
Why?
I, because in my mind, I wasn't thinking that when I lived in Alabama as a military brat too.
Mhm.
So they had, there's a big book called 13 Alabama Ghosts.
Yeah.
And
Seems like
I
a really good
loved
movie.
reading that like in third or fourth, second and third grade when I was in Alabama. And I remember for Halloween, we went to one of the places where one of the 13 ghosts was supposed to reside. And then wherever all the kids were in, did you see that face up in the window at the school? They say somebody died up there. And it's like, oh, that spooky stuff.
Oh, that's
So,
cool. Are you familiar with the Emmett House in Ohio?
yes, I've been there.
Yeah. So that place doesn't exist anymore. It burnt down.
Wait a
But and
minute.
now
Okay,
yes, this is
stop.
the one. This is the one that has to do with one of the president's illegitimate, like Thomas Jefferson's illegitimate son or something like that, built this place.
Where is this house at, and when did it burn down?
The Emmett House is in Waverly, Ohio. Well, it was in Waverly, Ohio.
Oh, that's right.
It's a
That's
restaurant.
right.
Yes, it was a
I was thinking of
restaurant.
Chillicothe. No, I've been there. I've eaten there, and I
Yeah,
got to misplace this thing. Another place, Chillicothe.
yeah.
Yes.
I used to work there, and it is like super haunted. But when you're working, you don't necessarily always. It's loud. You don't really hear voices or whatever. Well, so it like closed for a while, and then one of my clients bought it and opened, like remodeled it and reopened it, bringing back all this, the stuff from it. And she allowed me and my friend Sherry to go in and do EVPs and stuff while they were remodeling. She allowed us to go in and like have a private, just go on our own. I'm not even kidding. It was, I took my grandma had given me a little recorder, and I took my iPad, and I had a little digital, like a little recorder with a little tape in it back in the day. And we listened. I had like 14 different things. And one thing, so I always had the microphone out. And one thing because it's like 3 stories, and it was an old hotel, and there was a door, and there was a tie on it, like a necktie of sorts. I was like, oh, I said, if there's a necktie on it, we just knock on the door. What do we do? Kind of like you know what I mean? When I said that, we just kind of moved along. When we listened to the recording, I said that, and there was like a, not
Wow.
even kidding. Yes.
Yeah.
We had like scratchy noises. Yeah, we heard like little disembodied. There was like 14 different things like that. It was, you could feel the energy. It was like very cool. But
I
anyways,
remember Diane and I eating there with our friend. That was probably 2000 or 2001. And we were talking about all that. Of course, we didn't experience anything, but there were a gazillion people in there eating too. Wonderful food. No paranormal experiences for me that day. But yes,
right.
I've heard all those stories.
All right. Let's talk about scary stories, what they are, points about writing them, and some of our favorites. Like I said, before we get to our favorite stories, let's talk just in general about scary story writing. This is a podcast about writing, so we must, I guess, introduce writing tips, right, for scary stories.
Absolutely. You're looking for emotional trauma, honestly. Anything, it's like 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 Flight 666. So much emotional trauma. One of the horror stories I wrote, which was based on the 7 deadly sins. And if you read it, you'd be like, I can't podcast with this guy anymore. He is so sick and twisted. But just some of the weirdest things I put in there. So what can psychologically mess with a person or really incite that fear?
Yeah. I feel like there should be certain key points that when you're writing a scary story that should be invoked for your readers. You need to kind of like pull that fear out. And I feel like sometimes that's hard to do because sometimes you play it too safe. You're like, oh no, maybe you shouldn't. Maybe you shouldn't play it safe. I don't think I'm playing it safe in this next book. This next book, I'm just kind of like I'm just gonna make it.
No, you got
Make it
to.
happen.
I mean,
Hmm.
it's got to be. I mean, you want to. I mean, I understand some horror stories. It's like there's a build up. Like, is there really something wrong with that? I can't remember that Nicole Kidman movie where she was taking care of, and it ended up being that she was a ghost
The
and she didn't
others.
realize it. Yes,
The
yes. And
others.
she's like, "What are these people?" So I didn't really
Hmm.
know in the
Hmm.
beginning. So there are those types, but I like the
Oh,
types that
there
are
were
like
clues though. There were absolute clues.
when you go back. I mean, when I'm first watching it, I wasn't paying attention.
Uh-huh.
Or what's the movie recently about all these alien monsters came to Earth and you have to be quiet? You can't make a
Oh,
noise.
you're talking about Quiet Place,
Yeah, and there's like a Quiet Place 2, and then they made some.
the new
Uh,
one. Yeah, we saw that one in theaters.
okay, but there's a third one now. I don't think it was in theaters. I think it went direct to video. It's like, but like
No,
day one. Yes, a Quiet
no, it
Place
was
day
in
one.
theaters. We literally would watched it in
A
theaters.
day one was in theaters.
Yes.
Okay, it just seems so different to me. Like, how did it go? Because
No,
it's
it
like
was in. We
boom.
went to theaters and watched it.
Okay, so now I got to go back and watch all three in order from three,
Yeah,
one,
it was
two.
in theaters. Like day one was in
Oh,
theaters.
I had no clue because I'm like,
Apparently.
this just came out. It's like, bam, it was already on Amazon. So, all
Yeah.
right,
Well, I mean, a lot of
okay.
things do that. Yeah.
Podcast two, where I was wrong about something. Harry Potter in a Quiet Place. I'm done. Just
You're
I'm
yeah.
spent.
Stop giving
All
out
right.
non-facts, okay? Fake
Yeah,
news.
yeah. We're gonna do. We're gonna do a podcast on not Jamie's non-facts. So let's keep
Yes.
a collection.
Yes. The collection of Jamie's untruths. All right.
Okay, so what makes a good story for you? What are these elements you're
Yeah,
talking
what's
about?
something, yeah, something that just evokes this. So something that I was talking about or putting in the notes was fear of the unknown. Like that eerie, like the powerful triggers that allows your reader to imagine what's happening. And we've talked about this before where we were talking about suspense and we were talking about different types of writing. Do you tell your readers everything? And I don't feel like you have to tell them everything because sometimes you want their imagination to go. So giving them like leading them on completely step by step is not always the best idea when you're doing fear. You want to kind of leave that unknown scenario where it can be a little bit more it can conjure up a little bit more inner fear from your reader. And I did this in Crystal Gate very little. I mean, because I was a new writer and I was learning, but I remember a certain part of the book that people would tell me about that always kind of set unwell with them. And it's a chapter when the character Alexis is walking into her apartment. It's dark outside. She's going up. She lives up in this apartment above a furniture store, and it's dark. I'm leading you into this dark room, and the house is dark. Her new dog's kind of acting kind of like distant, and she's not really paying much attention. But like certain things, the reader knows that there is a shadow in the living room that she doesn't know is there. There's this shadow that watches her. And that's kind of how I end the chapter is like, and he watched, or something like that. And it later goes into what's happening, and how she has an out of body experience. Kind of leave where you like, oh my gosh, what is going to happen? So, and someone told me once, she's like, I asked my mom to come in and close my windows because I did not want to move. I wanted her to shut my windows because after I read that chapter, I was so freaked out. I was like, oh, that's so funny.
Oh my God, you brought back we had just moved in a new house in Portsmouth and I was 14. I forget what I've been watching. I've been on a horror trip. I'm laying in bed. Now it's like February, but
Mhm.
it's windy out and somebody's rapping at my window.
Is it
And
the
somebody's,
Raven?
I don't know, but I was it woke me up and I don't know if you've ever experienced this. I had so much fear. I was concrete. I couldn't move. I've never
Paralysis?
happened. Yes, fear paralysis. Literally, never. It's the only time I ever experienced in my life. I don't know how I did it. Everything I could do to go up and turn on the lights,
Mhm.
and then realized they had plastic over the windows, so you do that to kind of keep the air from blowing it. And it was rattling,
Mhm.
and it was hitting my window. That's all it was. And then it
Yeah,
was like,
yeah. And so this next point on this storytelling is kind of goes in line with what you were just saying is leaving that uneasy feeling of what just happened. Like, I'm not sure what just happened and I'm freaked out. I'm almost paralyzed by the fear that's about to come to pass. And you want to make sure that those key points in your chapters, you're leaving off with a little bit of like moments. Like, you lead your reader and they think it's going to be like, okay, I'm going to find out. And you're like, and you leave them hanging of this uneasy feeling that you're kind of like shrouding this mystery of what's to come. And you may not touch it again for several chapters. They're like, oh, I got to keep reading because I got to figure out what's going to happen.
That's the best thing, though, because then you hook them. They're like, wait a minute, I got to get to that. Why aren't we discovering that?
Like leave it hanging, and you just kind of leave that there, like, oh my gosh. And then so they have to, the story builds. It's almost like when you're watching a movie, you're like, oh my gosh, I know what's going to happen. I know, okay, this is happening here, and that's happening there. I had this strange Bride of Frankenstein thing going on with my hair this morning with the front.
That's all right. I'm playing with my water bottle. So
that's all right. We're a little spazzy. It's fine. No big deal.
I like those. I like the horror movies. I don't know if you've ever done this, Karisa.
I don't like slasher films.
Oh, I love Jeepers Creepers.
Oh, yeah.
A House of a Thousand Corpses by Rob Zombie and The Blair Witch Project. Completely different movies. Rob's is real campy, but I will tell you this. After I watched both of them in the theater and we're going home, I remember looking at Diane, and I felt like I was dirty on the inside. I don't know how to explain it. Like, I don't know. I was freaked out, and like life around me, everything's evil, and I don't deserve to be here. I mean, it freaked me out that bad. And
wow.
Blair Witch, I remember, I don't know what's wrong with us as parents. My son was like 12 or 13, and they wanted to watch that movie. So his best friend, Jonathan, and who I grew up with us, that we let him watch it. And then I forget what had happened. They kind of fallen asleep, or they were watching the movie, and I went outside and I started stacking rocks.
My gosh.
And they both flipped out. Jonathan was crying like, Ryan. Sick and twisted parents. Awesome.
Yeah. I think the closest I've ever come to, see, I don't typically get scared. I've watched scary movies since I was a kid, and we've let our girls watch them. But we've always told them these are stories. They're using makeup. We would, show them things that this is the behind the scenes, these are real actors. So we've kind of they always knew this was fake in a sense. But because, I mean, we got to raise our kid on good cultured movies, right?
Yes, absolutely.
But here's the thing. When I was growing up, and I'm this must be because I have a slightly twisted mind myself. I would watch Nightmare on Elm Street, all those movies on HBO all the time. And my parents did not filter what I watched. I don't think they knew what I was watching at a very young age. I'm talking like 6 years old. I'm watching these things. Yeah. But I never had a nightmare. I've not ever had a nightmare, but I would somehow in my brain, I don't know if it's because I can control that whole lucid thing. Whenever there's the scary parts in there, I somehow make the characters flip and be good in my mind.
I've never had
I had a dream where I had turned Freddy Krueger back to being a good person. I don't even know. I remember the details, but I remember it being a good thing.
I've never controlled him like that. I've never really had a nightmare. I can't believe I'm even sharing this with all of you. I was about 16 and I did have a nightmare. It was inside of Ohio, and I'm driving, and all of a sudden these big furry round ball monster things started rolling out of the hill, and I just remember being so scared. And they were called oogies.
Called critters?
No, they were like giant critters. But at the same time, I was like, "Oh my God, it's the oogies! They're going to kill me!" And I remember it waking me up, and I was scared to death over rolling fur balls. That's the only nightmare I can remember. So yes.
Yeah. So another type of key point. What?
No, I'm just thinking how moronic I am. But go ahead.
You're funny. Heightened fears, like these institutionalized fears, these fears of human psychology, such as the fear of death, the fear of loss of control, confinement, isolation. These primal fears can be motivators for horror narratives, for creating that psychological thriller. You know what I mean? Incorporating elements that increase the story's impact of you almost see what's happening. It's kind of like the scary movies or anything that you've watched where death is on the horizon for everybody in the room, but what's the order in which they're going to die? That everybody opened the Ouija box, and now they've touched the planchette, and so now they've touched the planchette. They're all going to die, except for that one person, she never actually touched it, so we know she's not going to die.
You can break the curse.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
no, she don't.
Yeah. Or like, well, I mean, Final Destination.
Yeah,
Hello.
that's what I was trying to say.
None of us follow log trucks anymore because of that movie.
You know, that is a psychological imprint. Every time I'm behind a log truck, I'm like, I slow down. I'm like, I got to get over and pass them. Yep.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. You know. It's almost like I'm gonna let my kids watch this so they don't get close to a log truck. All right, suspense and tension. So it's suspense and tension, Jamie. You want to cover that one?
I got to find where we're at. Man, you were flying through these notes. You didn't even mention how Kat's our resident Vendera publishing horror author. I've written 3
I
horror
was going
books,
to go back
but
to
you
that
could
one.
probably combine them and put them in one of her books because she's a
All
prolific
right.
writer. She's
When
huge.
when he said cats, he's not talking about black cats. He's talking
Yeah,
about Catherine Horsley.
Catherine. Yep.
Catherine Horsley, darling.
Yeah.
She writes
Horsley.
vampires, gory, suspense. She's our resident one as far as that's what she writes. You, sir, write all over the place.
Exactly.
So I
But
don't.
like I was saying, I could put my 3 books together and they still would not be as thick as her first
Right?
book. Yes, I'm like, I want to like get in and get out. I'm done. All right. Did I scare you? Good. Let's move on. So
Okay. All
let's
right.
move on. Suspension tension. I'm Sean Connery. Building suspense through pacing carefully reveals and foreshadowing keeps the readers on edge, making them anticipate what will happen next. That's what I love when you're like, okay, this is not right. That doll just did that doll just move? They didn't even acknowledge it, and then you find out, yeah, that doll, or there was that one movie and they thought the doll was alive and
Annabelle
it was what was it?
or Chucky? Annabelle or
No,
Chucky?
no, no. No, this one was the girl was in Walking Dead and she was caretaking for this doll. Said you got to watch the doll and it ended up being
Oh,
a
was it like a
person.
little boy?
Yes, the boy. That's what it was called, the boy. And
Yeah.
really, there was a person living in the
Mm,
walls,
yes.
moving it. So the
I watched
whole
that.
time, I thought that thing is alive, and it was suspenseful. Like, what's it going to do next?
That girl was
So
in The
yeah,
Walking Dead?
yes, she's one of the main characters.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That was Glenn's wife. I forgot. Yeah.
Yep,
I don't know.
yep,
I was
yep,
thinking
yep,
of a
yep,
different.
yep.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I was thinking it was. I think I was thinking of a different main character.
Uh,
Oh, something that I missed over though that is essential is making sure the person who's going to potentially be your victim that your readers can connect with them. The reader is going to be more, I feel, psychologically thrown off if they can connect to the person that they don't want to die or they don't want to experience this horror in the book.
yep.
They really don't want that to happen to them, but it's like, oh my gosh, this is going to happen to them. You want to kind of take that vulnerable part and highlight that and bring that out.
Well, that's how you break down your psyche, and you're like, no, 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 and then you get so involved in it that when it's going to happen, but when it happens, it's like mortifying. So
Yeah,
that's
it
kind of
makes the
leads you to
stakes so much higher.
yeah. So that's like your next note here: the careful crafting of scenes where danger seems imminent yet delayed can create intense psychological tension, and that could be the same thing. Like you could feel it. This person is going to die. And then maybe you're like, oh no, here it comes, here it comes. What? Maybe
Chapter
they're not
ends.
going to die. Yes, they're not going to die.
Chapter ends. Oh my gosh, what's happening? I got to read this next one. Yes.
Yes, and then it's 3
delayed.
chapters that's nothing about that person. They're like you were saying, you're like, oh my god, get to the point. So
yes. But you don't want to over make them wait. Don't make them wait too long because then they may like, you know what? I'm skipping.
well, if you write chapters like me, they'll be there in like 4 minutes. So
I write short chapters too. But I just write a lot of them in comparison.
But you don't write 3 page chapters in a 78-page chapter, but we discussed that before in this podcast.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Although if you're doing a horror, I mean, you could do like everything like the 178 chapter book be something completely intense. I don't know. You could do that. Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, and if your friends are reading it and they're like, how was that 78 pages? It flew by. Then that's a different story.
Yes. Okay, so this next point is the disruption of normalcy. You want things to seem somewhat normal. I feel like that's where a lot of times things in storylines feel very normal, and then all of a sudden birds are hitting the windows. Like, what is happening? Like some kind of shock value, something that's going to involve disrupting the familiar, disrupting that environment that you expect to be that way.
It's kind of like that's what freaked me out about Amityville Horror. That pastor came into the house, everything was normal, and then he was in that one room, and all of a sudden, all these flies started coming on the window, and I'm like, "What is going on?" that I got cold chills thinking about it.
I think the Amityville Horror, Bates Motel, Chainsaw Massacre, I think I will correct myself if I'm wrong. I think all of those were inspired by a real serial killer.
Yep.
And I cannot remember his name, but when it was, I remember listening to an episode on Morbid about this particular killer and the atrocity of what they saw, like women's bodies gutted, the things that they found. And this was just a normal guy in town. No one would suspect this guy. He was super normal. Well, not normal. He was kind of odd once you realized it, but like he was a normal part of the scene. And I don't know about you, but I don't care where I'm at. And people can judge me for all. I look at every person that has a little bit of a strange quirk and I'm like, are you a serial killer? You have a shed with a bunch of bodies.
I haven't looked at people like that, but Diane and I were discussing. I'm like, we know somebody who's, they're innately evil. There's something about them, and we just don't know what we
Mm-hmm.
don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So it's around us every day. We just don't realize it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes. When normal life is invaded by an uncanny and monstrous situation, it creates this feeling of vulnerability and fear because, like I said, when you see that actually happening in like Amityville Horror and Bates Motel, you think about that, but these were inspired by real things. The thing that makes it creepy is that it actually happened to an extent to inspire these fictional stories. Somebody did do these monstrous things in a normal environment that upset an entire town.
Yeah, or even the haunted houses. This really happened too. There was a building down on Boney Fiddle in Portsmouth, Ohio, and some
Bone
friends of
fatal.
Boney Fiddle, and some of my friends had a new age kind of shop. And I went in there. First time I've been in there, and it was 3 stories. And I'm like, oh, "Where's your restroom?" I was on the second floor. So I went up, used the restroom. I'm leaving, and you hear going up third floor, the steps creaked, and I looked up, and there was an old man up there. He was literally there, and he
Mhm.
just looked at me funny, like. I'm like, well, what's your freaking problem? I didn't say anything because he just walked on up the stairs, and I went down and I said, well, one of your tenants on the third floor said he kind of a grouchy old, and they're like, oh, is he kind of portly, kind of bald head? Said yes. Said, oh, that's one of the ghosts here. I said, no, it was not. They said, yes, and he doesn't like men. And I said, he's flirtatious with women. I'm like, wow. So we had Dustin Perry from Ghost Hunters was in. They had a big thing down there. So everyone was ghost hunting, had their EMF, everything. We're checking, and nothing for us that night. There was nothing in there. But other people in other buildings, like, wow, we had this. So, but the haunted houses, that's something that, would be a disruption of normalcy. Like, don't go in there.
Mhm. Yes. Um, let's see here. Yeah, like you said, haunted house, small towns, dark secrets. Like the one we talked about, the lottery. That one time, that book.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the town has a ritual, has a dark secret. And the setting turns everything sinister. It turns everything upside down, like the purge. Um, so you have these things that everything seems normal. But then all of a sudden you realize I woke up in a town that is like it's set in the late 70s or something, and I know them in the late 2000s or the early 2000s or whatever. So what's happened? Why is it like this? Why is everybody so weird and so peaceful? You know, if everybody's being peaceful, someone's up to something.
Yeah.
You know when the
Except their
storyline,
wives.
yeah, you know when everybody's got this like facade that something's going on.
Yep.
That's not right. Anyways, psychological manipulation. These stories play with the mind. These are the stories that kind of stick with you and follow you into your dreams and make you feel dirty when you're done watching it, like you said. Things that really mess with your perceptions and things that kind of confuse you and only makes you anxious about reality.
It's when we did the Moment of Death trilogy, that was kind of my point with Flight 666. I wanted something that was like House of a Thousand Corpses, just super morbid. But Long Cold Winter, the middle book, I wanted it to be more of a ghost kind of demonic story. And then the third one, I wanted it to be psychological. So all three books tying together, but as you get deeper, you realize the whole thing is a psychological thriller, horror story that's just messing with your mind with hallucinations and stuff along those lines. So yes,
Well,
a lot of anxiety.
I think I don't read a lot of horror, but I remember years ago I attempted to read it. I just didn't get into it. I like the movies, but I just didn't get it. I've tried on multiple times to read Stephen. My husband reads Stephen. He'll read Stephen King books, but I just never got into Stephen King's writings. And it's nothing against Stephen King. He's a phenomenal writer because he brings so many people in. I prefer the visual aspect of watching Stephen King stuff, if that makes sense.
No, I do too. Like when I was younger, in my teens, I read Cujo and Carrie, and I think there was one other, Christine, the Three C's. I read all of those, and then I watched the movies, and I guess from the movies, I didn't really continue reading.
Yeah, I try to read Insomnia. Like I try to read all of those books, but
that's a great picture. Anya. Drink your water, kids.
Okay. Anyways, moral dilemmas. And here's the thing. I feel like a lot of times when you're watching or you're reading a storyline and you instantly think, oh my gosh, they're a murderer. Oh my gosh, they're this or that. But then you go to find the backstory and you're like, the reason they're this way is because of what someone did to them. Or so you almost have this empathy and you're like, why am I feeling sorry for this killer? Why am I putting this? Yeah, I don't know. It's like they didn't really have a.
Yeah, I know we're referring to movies a lot, and this is about writing books, but we're both very visual. So when we mention these type of things, I literally think of the Saw movies, especially the first couple before they get crazy. But it was like, do you want to live, or you want them to live? Or you going to you going to saw off your hand and live? Or you want to sacrifice your friend so you can survive? So those are that one freaked me.
We should do an offshoot of the Always Right podcast and do like watch movies and then give our take on them.
I think we talked about doing another podcast. Remember? I won't reveal
that was about more of the weird stuff, like the strange, always strange.
Yep, always strange.
Yes,
we could always watching movies. Okay,
always. Oh, there! Look at you! The Always series, the Always franchise. All right, so
can we do an always eating one, and we like go to restaurants and test out the food?
Yeah, but you have to come to Florida.
Okay, well that's all right. We'll have to travel all kinds of places.
Okay, Diane, I have to go to Florida. We have to try these places.
Yeah, we got to. CB down for that. We love food.
Although I would want to go back to London and try some of the food places over there that are off the beaten path.
Oh yeah, I love when I'm touring. Like, I'll be in Poland in November. Same thing. I love trying new food.
Why are you going to Poland and you didn't? You're not taking me with you.
Did I not tell you I was going to Poland?
No.
Maybe not. I have to go do some studies, but I'm actually meeting with my doctor about the glass, about the nerve damage. So 3 days of Dr. Bach studies and an examination.
I can just go with and not even be with you. I'll just go do my own thing.
And I'm telling you, there's this. It's an ale. It's not. They have alcoholic and non-alcoholic. I don't even know how to describe how this tastes. It's like a root beer ferment. I can't even, there's nothing I can compare it to. It's the best drink I've ever had in my life.
So rude. I wanted to have kielbasa and pierogies. Those, like, my family's Polish.
Yes, they're good. I'll have an extra one for you.
So rude. So rude.
The cultural taboos.
Cultural taboos, yes. Wait.
Did we skip one?
Maybe.
I don't think so. Maybe. I don't know.
Moral dilemmas. Placing characters in situations they must make an impossible choice. Like you said, yes, we talked about Saul.
Yes, Saul.
Conflict between what is right and surviving the creative tension that drives the narrative. So, yeah. Okay. Now we can move on to cultural taboos. Like you said, many fears that are rooted in like cultural taboos and societal norms. Like we talked about the
purge, maybe
the purge, lottery, things like that. Things that create a challenge and violate these things. But it's like, this is how this culture survives. This is the only way they can do that.
And this ain't really like a horror, but
no, it's psychological scary.
What is the young girl and the bow? Everyone loves those movies. Katniss.
You're talking about Hunger Games.
Hunger Games.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that's a perfect example.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Exploring the themes of death, sexuality, supernatural, and the grotesque that can resonate deeply with the readers and their innate fear. I feel like that's why vampire books are way more popular than mermaid books. No one fears a mermaid. They fear a
They just
siren.
didn't write it. Yes, exactly. They didn't
But I
write it right.
mean, yes. Well, yeah, but I feel like if you do a mermaid book that is scary, people aren't gonna like. They want mermaid. They want to be a mermaid. Little kids want to be a mermaid. So that's not necessarily a scary mythological creature, but because there's this cultural setting for a certain type of thing, it's already going to create that, that tension, like vampires. But I mean, honestly, Stephanie Meyer's books weren't scary. Catherine
Now I gotta
Wilson's
write
books, scary.
Merblade, and she's got
Merblade.
these big knives in her hands, and you go
That's a
fishing and.
that's a hybrid looking character. Yeah.
Oh my gosh! All right.
Yes. All right. So
Oh, I
real.
gotta say this before you,
Yes.
because this ADHD kicking in. My wife loves Halloween Michael Myers. If I didn't mention that, she'd be like, "I can't
You
believe
said
you didn't mention it."
you said she loves Halloween. You like that she loves Halloween stuff, but
Yeah,
didn't
she's like,
you?
because we got too many animals. She's like, I want to go to the actual Halloween house from the movies. I want to go to Salem, and we do too. She's like freaky. I just bought her a 10-foot and 8-foot, and this, or she did. I bought her 10-foot. She bought the 8 and 6-foot one, and we just got this gigantic 10-foot thing. It's got like lightning coming through it. She's like, this weekend I want to decorate outside the house. She gets so excited. This is her Christmas.
Right.
So, all right,
No, it's fine.
ADHD convinced. Go for it.
Yes. All right. So, what are some of your favorite stories from the past?
Honestly, like I mentioned, Blair Witch. I love that. Salem's Lot. I loved Amityville. I read Amityville Horror. I love that movie. I love the book. People Under the Stairs. It's kind of a campy one out of the 80s. Anything with werewolf. Oh, The Howling. The original Howling show. That one freaked me out. Love it. So a lot of that. I like the typical monsters, the Frankenstein's monster, werewolf, mummies, and stuff like that. But
Oh yeah,
anything haunted.
on the podcast set, I have. Let me see if I can turn that just a little.
Skeletor.
Oh, what?
I see
So
the skeleton skull.
whoa, right there, I have Frankenstein, Dracula, and Sleepy Hollow
Oh, cool.
over there. I'm losing everything. All right.
Oh, Supernatural. You ever watch that television show?
Oh my gosh, yes, all 75,000 episodes.
Yes, 75,462. Yes.
Be
I
exact.
thought I would never get through it. It was like, wow,
Oh,
yes.
I know. Yes,
But I loved it.
Yeah.
And that book, I didn't even know that existed.
Spooky Ohio. Yes, this is written by a woman from Ohio. Someone named Chris Woodyard. And it tells these tales. They're folklore tales from Ohio. I had read this, not all of them, but I read several of them in the past. I was trying to find one this morning that I knew for sure, but I couldn't find it. That was is near you. I can't remember which one it is. Anyways, but that's kind of cool. Sometimes your own little areas have their own scary areas. But I found this on my husband's shelf. This one.
Oh, wait a minute. Is that from the TV show? There was a book about it?
There was a book. There was a trilogy.
You mean they made a book out of the TV show? No.
God,
I did not know it was a book. I have to read that now.
Yeah, the Strain trilogy.
Yes, and it makes me mad because it was on Netflix or Prime, and now you can't get it unless you buy it. I was like,
yeah, but see, horror books, because I don't read horror books or like things like that. But I was like, oh, the Strain, that's very creepy. That's like a dark vampire series. It's very, very, yeah. And then Spooky Tale, the Spooky Ohio with the tales in there. And then I could not find my Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. Because I have those somewhere. I don't know. I think my older daughter may have them. I may have given those to her because I used to read those to her all the time when she was a little girl. That and Calvin and Hobbes we'd read together. But
that's quite a bit different.
I mean, whatever. Calvin and Hobbes, yeah. And then Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. I was reading different things, but Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark and more Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. Those were some of the ones, even from my childhood, that kind of like filtered through.
Again, as much as I love horror, it's mainly movies. Like I said, I read a few Stephen King's, read The Howling, read a book called The Wereling. I forget what else. Wrote The Three. That's about my experience. But I will dive into movies. I love. I love it when I'm finished watching it. I'm like, I don't feel right.
Yeah.
I want it to affect me that bad.
Yeah. And I feel like sometimes the psychological stuff that we were talking about earlier was when you can relate to the person who's the evil person. And you're like, oh, I have a little bit of that inside me. Am I like that? So, yes. So, yes, spooky season is here for Diane and all of us lovers of Halloween. And so, what better way to celebrate than to bring an episode in that talks about scary stories on the podcast?
Absolutely.
Yes. If we have some of those books at 7-Eleven Press, if you'd like to go over there, or if you'd like to go check out Catherine Horsley's books, you can go to the VenderaPublishing.com and click on her little thing because she's got some vampire books that have a little love, a little scariness, a little horror, and lots of blood. So, anyways.
Yeah, so, and this podcast is over, so I got one thing to say.
Oh, no.
All right. You can end the podcast now.
My goodness.
I had to give something hoary. Hoary!
Whoa!
I had to give something horror-y. All right.
The episode where Jaime gave himself away. I'm still keeping this in there. All right.
I know, because I was going to say, you need to edit it. I was like, she's not going to edit this.
Not that part. I'm keeping that one for you. All right. As always, if you'd like to reach out to us, you can go to alwayswritepodcast@gmail.com. Send us an email. Share us your stories. If you'd like to find ways to follow us or find other platforms to listen to us on, go to alwayswritepodcast.com. Click on any of the icons, and they'll take you to our social media. And we always appreciate our listeners, and we always enjoy getting together and hoping that we can make your writing process more enjoyable and more inspiring and help lead you to the books that you want to do. So,
and make you laugh every once in a while. So
yeah. And if you're not laughing, shame on you. We're hilarious.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
So,
yeah.
Love having you. Keep following us. Let your author
keep
friends
keep
know
watching.
about us. Yes.
And write those books.
About it.
Put you on point today. All right. Until next time, I'm author Karisa DeLay.
And I'm author Jaime Vendera.
Thanks for listening, and always write.